Coloring a single image can be pretty intimidating, but what about coloring an entire project? Hundreds of files, maybe multiple cameras, maybe different formats being used. It's a whole different beast. Well, in this video, I'll give you a bird's eye view, project level perspective of DaVinci Resolve and how I use their tools to not only stay organized, keep my color grade consistent, but most importantly, stay efficient. Let's dive right in. So last week we spent a lot of time on this shot, converting it from S-Log3 to Rec. 709 and adjusting it to give it the look that we wanted. And one of the first steps that we looked at was to use color space transform to switch from log format color space to then the Rec. 709 color space. And that was our first step. But we did all of that inside of the clip level, meaning any adjustment we did to that shot is not applied to any other shot. So we would have to go through that process for every single shot that we want to use in our project, which it would work perfect, but it will take us forever. But DaVinci gives us the ability to create groups and assign certain clips to certain groups. And so you can see on this one, I already created a Sony group so that I can group all the shots that I've taken with my Sony camera into a single group, and then I can assign specific nodes to that group. So if I assign this clip to the Sony group, I'll now have the ability to add nodes on the group level, pre-clip and post-clip. And this is the hierarchy that we're talking about, where nodes put into the pre-clip will be applied to the shot first, then the clip level nodes will be applied, then the post-clip nodes would be applied, and finally the timeline nodes will be applied. So if we look on the group level, then you can see that I have my color space transform set for my Sony S-Log file to Rec. 709. And so now any shots that I add to that particular group will receive the color space transform. And that's a huge time saver. So I can add a shot to my timeline, and it's still in S-Log. And you have to go into the color tab in order to then be able to assign that shot into a group. So if I added to the group, then you'll see that right away, it will receive the color space transform and is already in Rec. 709 format or color space. And so that already cut my work significantly, because I don't have to apply that to every single shot. I just need to group those shots together, and then it will apply the right color space transform. And now I can make any adjustment like we've looked at last time on the clip level. So if we bring our scopes up, then we can see, just like last time, that we have a little bit of space on the highlights. And we can also see that maybe we can add a little bit of blue here in the highlights. So we're selected on the clip level. We have our node, and we can raise our levels on the highlights right before clipping. And we can make any adjustment that we want. So if we want to lower our shadows, although they're pretty low already, so let me raise the shadows a little bit and then lower the blacks just to create a little bit more of a range of contrast there. So we can make all those adjustments on the clip level, and I can still name that one as well. We can rename the node label, and we can call that exposure. And then we still have the ability to add nodes post-clip and then on the timeline. So for me, the way I organize myself for a project is to have my color space transform on the group level, like we just looked at, do all my individual clip adjustment as far as exposure on the clip level. And then on the timeline level, I will then apply a full grade. I already created my grade. I use a plugin called Dehancer Pro. I have a video on how to use Dehancer Pro if you want to go look that into more detail. But Dehancer Pro is a great tool to mimic film, and I'm not a huge fan of plugins. I actually don't use any other plugins than Dehancer Pro, and I really enjoyed it. I really like it. It does have its own color space transform where you can go from S-Log to Rec 709, but then I would have to do that not on the timeline level, but on the group level, and then it becomes repetitive because of all the issues that we just talked about. So for me, I don't use the color space transform in Dehancer Pro when I'm working on a large project, because I can then just create my grade and apply it to the entire timeline. And what happens is now my grade is consistent across all the shots. Where Dehancer Pro is really powerful is it mimics actual film stocks. And so you can pick different film stock and you'll see different effects. And so I don't want to really mess with the one I have. I picked that Kodak Chromachrome 64 experimental, so I'm just going to click a different one. But if you pick a different one, it will give you a different look, and then you can adjust those looks within Dehancer Pro. But not only can you pick a film stock, but then you have all kind of other tools that makes the film stock that you pick respond differently to the exposure level. So you can different stock will respond differently to like the colors, the saturation, the exposure, all those things. And so you can play with all those things in here and really create a grade that looks, to me, very, very high-end and great. And so there is no limitation onto what you can do here with Dehancer. And so that's what I use to create the grade. And then by putting that on the timeline level, it is then applied to every single shot on my timeline. And so you end up with a consistency of the color grade. So if I add another shot, let's say this one, and this is a Sony shot, when we bring the shot to the timeline, it's gonna receive the grade because our grade is turned on the timeline level. So if I go to the color tab, I can see that it is turned on the timeline level. So if I turn that off, here's the S-Log shot. And let's add this shot to the S-Log group. You can only add a shot to the group from the clip level. So if I have the timeline level selected and I right click on this clip, I do not have the option to add this shot to a group. I don't know why DaVinci does it that way, but you need to be on the clip level, and then you can right click on that shot, and now you can see that our groups are available, and I can just apply it or assign it to that group. And now it received the color space transform S-Log3 to Rec 709 and still has our grade also from the timeline level. Okay. And so you can see that we're already pretty close from this shot to this shot. We're very close. It's brighter simply because it's a different time of day, but we're very close. What we can do is now go back to the clip level, and we can still apply nodes and adjust any of our settings to match the previous shot. So, if we feel like, first of all, I need to reframe this a little bit because it's not quite what I want. So let's go back here. I'll just push in a little bit, just kind of get rid of, there it goes. Good. Now we can adjust some of those settings here. So if we feel like we want to raise some of the shadows, then we can do that and crush some of the blacks a little bit. There we go. Whoops, too much. And then we can raise our highlights too if we want. So those adjustments are now done at the clip level. We can, bring saturation up or bring it back down. I like it down a little bit again to remove some of the colors in the background. And we'll just tweak it until we feel like we're close. Add some warmer tone to it. That's pretty good. And just desaturate even more. There we go. And maybe offset the whole thing down a little bit. There we go. Very nice. That's good. Now we can trim it and maybe place it here. Good. I have these shots here that we're taking with the Ronin, and it wasn't my camera, and I'm not actually sure what the format is. So we bring it on the timeline, and our grade is applied, the timeline grade. So we can turn that off just so that we can see the actual shot. Let's go back to the clip level. We're gonna add those shots to a new group. So we're gonna say add into a new group. We're gonna call this Canon. And now on the pre-clip level, instead of using color space transform, we're just gonna do it manually, since we're not exactly sure what flavor of log this is. And so we can look at our waveform and we can kind of stretch our contrast, bring our shadows and our blacks down. Again, we want to stretch that contrast. We should have some pure black in there with their close. That's pretty good. Raise that up a little. Good. Add a little blue. So we're just doing basically what color space transform would do, which is just bringing all our levels, bringing everything to the Rec. 709 levels. And that's pretty good. Let's say we're pretty happy with that. So now we have that in our pre-clip group level. So if I go back and add any other shot from that Ronin, so let's say we take this shot and I apply it to the timeline, then I can just add that to our Canon group and it will receive the same color space transform. Now you can see on this one that we're clipping, and that's just the exposure was done differently. And so now at the clip level, I can adjust that and bring it down a little bit. There we go. Good. There you go. And that's just our base. And then if we go back to our timeline level, we can turn our grade and it will apply the same grade that is applied to all the other shots. And now we can go back to the clip level and make any adjustment to that particular clip, just to make it, to adjust it for our purposes. So if we feel like, you know, those are too crushed or maybe too bright, then we can lower some of the highlights. Maybe raise a little bit of this. And just do it until we feel like we're matching. So that's the basic organization, the basic structure of using the hierarchy in DaVinci Resolve to try to be as efficient as possible. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding how each node is applied differently based on the hierarchy and how you can organize your projects to be more efficient. Thanks for watching and happy filming.